Today, we're joined by Edwin Chen, and my name is Anita from Voice AI Reskilling. We help professionals reskill for the AI workforce revolution, rethink the tools they're using, and rethink their workflows and their roles as a whole. And Edwin is going to talk to us about the solutions he's creating for businesses at Legacy AI. So, Edwin, please intro yourself. Let us know what you're working on with AI.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the co-founder of Legacy AI, and we are mostly a AI development agency at the moment. And we've been working mostly on building chat and voice agents for B2C companies, like ranging from a lot of industries like restaurants, consumer electronics, education, etc. And we're really focused on customer support and customer service at the moment, and that's kind of our niche at the moment. But yeah, just been developing for the past 6 months, I would say.
Awesome. Could you give us a couple of examples of what you're working on with clients just to get a better picture of the company and everything that you're working on?
Yeah, for sure. Like an example is there's basically a metering solution company, and they've been getting like I think 3,000 customer support tickets like every week. And I think the client came to us and be like, well, a lot of the tickets can just be a very like generic like questions that can be answered very easily by just looking at like the documentation and like the kind of technical menu because there's so many different like kind of these metering models and each they have their technical menu. But then yeah, so a lot of the customers don't actually like read the menu, and therefore like they just keep overloading kind of the customer support team with a lot of like generic questions. So we were like, actually, a lot of this can just answered by a very simple chat agent, and that can be very easily answered. So we just kind of implement like a chat agent that can answer that kind of knowledge-based questions based off from the menu that they have, essentially.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll dive into those a bit more as we roll into our conversation, but it seems like AI adaptation is at an all-time high. Like everybody wants to adapt to AI, everybody wants to make their business run by AI and be supported by AI, but it seems like there are a lot of failures that happen in that process, and then there are rare success stories. What are you seeing, and what do you think are the most common pitfalls in the AI adaptation as it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a trend that we're seeing as well. And I don't know if you know this, but actually, according to some stats, I think around 70 to 90% of AI projects actually fail in production, which is a very interesting stats to see because that's like two times more than kind of non-AI tech project. And I think really a lot of the reason boils down to just having poor data quality because unlike like traditional software development, AI projects usually requires very good data. And we have a saying where it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you've got bad data to begin with, or even missing data to begin with, you're gonna get a really bad output from the AIs, right? So essentially, data quality dictates a lot on the readiness of certain projects. And I think there's also kind of a high misunderstanding of what AI is good for and what AI is not good for. A lot of people try to use AI for a lot of tasks that are purely deterministic. So like as we know, like LM, like self large language models, they have inherent randomness, right? So using that for something that requires 100% accuracy is not the best use case. And we've seen that like failing because of a misunderstanding of that. And something that we'll get into as we go along as well is like a lot of it has to do with kind of the data on the governance side, like integrity and kind of LM security, and just lack of a robust framework for that. But we'll get into that more as we speak. But what about from the workforce perspective? Like, do you see people are even ready for what companies are trying to implement at the moment?
Yeah, I think that, from my perspective in the workforce, what we're seeing is that either enterprises are very scared to act and they're not even thinking about like what should be the next step. Like they are thinking, but it's just, I feel they're feeling a lot of paralysis because of security reasons, because of data reasons, and all of those, which are valid. But the biggest problem is that nobody's talking to their workforce. Like, what should they be doing? I mean, there are rare cases where, for example, CEO of Shopify said, if you're not using AI and you want to hire somebody, you first have to make a case why AI can't do that job before you start hiring for somebody. So I would say there are leaders in the space of AI adaptation, but then there are also people that are reserved in that space. And what we see happening is there's a lot of shadow use of LLMs, like people use AI for different pieces, even though the company is directing them not to. So it's just, I would say, a transitional period, but I think that those that act will continue to lead, and those that just stay in this holding pattern are going to really be struggling in the upcoming months, because those that are acting are going to be able to 10x their outputs, outcomes, and everything for the better. So yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. What we also see is that, like, the biggest companies have is that, their workforce is just going to figure it out. But what do you see is the most common business case mistake for companies making when they start approaching AI? Like, you said garbage in, garbage out. What are other things that you're
Yeah,
seeing in the
yeah,
adaptation phase?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I see a lot of AI, a lot of companies just treating AI like almost like a silver bullet, like a magic wand. And I think it's not entirely the company's fault. I think it's a lot to do with the vendors' fault as well. And because a lot of vendors, like especially on social media, kind of just post a lot of different builds that they just come up with a lot of complicated builds, but they don't actually solve like actual business problem, right? And a lot of the times, these AI vendors just overpromise what AI can do and kind of underdeliver. And that kind of builds kind of a lack of trust, even with companies, with AI, right? Because, well, you kind of promise that AI can do this, and it's kind of look really flashy on social medias and such. But then when it comes to actual production readiness, it's not production ready, right? So I think that's kind of destroyed, like I guess like the kind of that trust between AI and companies. And I would say another thing to look out for is definitely like a robust evaluation framework and a lack of a robust quality assurance framework. And because I don't think anyone in the AI space rarely talks about they rarely talk about kind of evaluation side. They talk a lot about the models, kind of the what's the hottest model right now, a lot of the development and application work, but not a lot of people talk about evaluations. And I think that's actually one of the most important things that takes projects from just a cool demo or like a MVP to something that the company can use and that can rely on. And it costs a lot of money to maintain as well, like these kind of AI projects. And it takes a lot of resource to maintain as well. And I think lacking that understanding is another bottleneck, I would say, for these companies. And as I mentioned earlier, I think governance is another thing. Like having robust LLM red teaming, if you're not familiar with that term, is basically kind of like AI security, just making sure the LLM, one, doesn't output things that it shouldn't say, essentially. And I don't know if you heard of that example where there's like basically a chatbot, an AI chatbot that a car dealership uses quite a while ago. And they used to try to basically go around the chatbot and make it output an offer of like getting $1 for a Honda Civic, which is really funny. And it was on social media and we went viral as well. And they basically make it say that it's a legally binding contract, you just can't take it back. So obviously these kind of things that you see, right, can quickly ruin your company's reputation and brand image very quickly. So definitely a good understanding and implementation of robust LLM security and kind of data privacy side will definitely make like AI adoption much more robust in general. That's what kind of I'm seeing kind of in the tech side as well. But I'm just curious about like if companies, as you said, were to skip kind of the upskilling phase, what does the failure actually look like on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think that, from our end, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of fear involved. Like when people are not educated to the empowering side of AI, but it's more, just introduced to them from top down and said, oh, like that 7-step process that you used to do, that's taken over by AI. So then like there is this really almost toxic relationship that happens with between people and AI because
Yeah,
they feel a lot of fear because they feel like they're going to be replaced. And I think that the the truth is actually that if you have people that are educated on AI, what they're going to be able to do is one, they're going to be the first people to voluntarily say, this is manual work, it's boring, I don't want to keep doing it, this is what I would offload to AI. They're going to be the best people to pinpoint the things where AI can be implemented, and they're going to be the best people to creatively think about solutions that could not only make their work and the work of their department more dynamic, more creative, more strategic. And I believe that's what people should be doing. They're going to be able to really push the business forward. So I think it's a crucial step. And I think that if companies allow to this workplace revolution to be fueled by fear, you're going to be missing out on a lot. And I definitely think that there's a lot of creativity and just passion, like in these employees that might be, faced with like, how can I even upskill when I'm doing so much right, like on
yeah,
my own right now in a company that's not telling me like use AI, but they're telling you don't use AI. Do it like you've done it. We got to figure out as our security and everything. And then people are left in this holding pattern and they don't know what's their next step.
yeah.
And what do you see on your side? Like the technology is perfect, but the implementation process like was not great, for example.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most common pitfall and how would you advise against it?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of things you said. Like that fear of replacement and kind of the lack of, not necessarily lack of understanding. It could be like the fear could come from lack of understanding of what the AI can do. But like, here's the things like there's one AI solution that we consistently work for, like already multiple clients, which is kind of the chat and voice side of things, which is a conversational AI builds that we've been doing for different clients. There's actually one example where I think it was an Australian client where they actually initially came to us and they want to explore kind of this AI, implementing these AI solutions with companies. That the unfortunate thing, as you said, the entire team that they have is extremely fearful of AI, and they're kind of the entire team basically advised against implementing the AI solutions, even though we kind of try our best to actually show that it actually drives value rather than something that's gonna like because one of the concerns was it's gonna mess with their data, it's gonna steal their data, it's gonna generate some like garbage that like kind of drives the customers away. Like there's all these fear, which is I mean it's not without reason, right? I mean, we can all see what social media, as I said earlier, what social media talks about when social media talks about AI tends to extremize some things and try to make it paint a picture of like a very bad narrative about AI when it's not necessarily the case when you have kind of a robust framework to that. So that's kind of that's kind of my kind of idea is that AI implementation will only really like drive home when the employees or like the team of the company actually have a solid understanding of the technology and what it can do, not necessarily just for the company, but for their everyday like work. If like we can show or let them understand that it is a tech that's going to stay and it's a tech that's going to make their life easier on their everyday work, as you said, like without all those manual work and actually make them focus on the creative or like more make them focus on the exciting work, then I think they will actually like AI and they will support the adoption of that technology. But
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's a big piece. And
yeah,
for us, it's always like almost taking a higher ground and like abstracting things for people so that they can understand like it's more than you understanding how like this process work or this like automation works or this, conversational AI works. It's about like grasping the whole picture and it's about truly for me, it's going to be a workforce revolution. And what I want and where I'm kind of what I'm hoping for is that it's going to be a positive one. And because to be frank, I feel like for quite some time, people have been, pretty miserable in the things that they were doing because like they were acting as part of a machine, a part of a, like this thing that was just operating. And if you were to tell any of these employees, imagine if you didn't have to file every case or every conversation that you had. Instead, you can think about like what were the problems that were brought up and thinking about how you can make the customer experience better. Like that solution is scalable. That I feel like sparks creativity. That's really, really interesting. So I love that example that you brought up. I think that it's really, really, um, it brings the whole story alive.
Yeah, and I mean it's true, right? Because I think that a lot of the fear of companies of AI adoption would go away once they understand what it is the tech actually does, and it's really hard for no, I would say sometimes it's easier, but then some companies are harder naturally. I would say there is some sort of resistance of just pure AI vendors like myself, like for example, like a development agency, to kind of educate on them because they don't necessarily trust you because you're trying to sell them the AI systems and such, right? So I think having that, you know, a third party access to just free resources or just like not necessarily free resources, but like just educational materials and just having that entire company upskilling definitely build that trust between companies and this technology, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, from our side, like what we've seen to be really, really positive is from the work that we've done with some of our participants in the Voice AI reskilling program. And we are working with people that are solopreneurs and consultants and trying to build out their practice, to people that are working within corporations and want to get a better understanding of AI and really think how they can implement these solutions internally. And what we've seen is that, we've heard from some of our participants say, I feel like I've gotten creativity, like my creativity back from years of it being denied throughout my career, which completely makes sense. And that's what AI can unlock for a lot of employees, whether you're building out your practice and you're just going on the entrepreneurial route, or you're trying to push your, industry, your sector, your team further. I think it's actually just a very, very creative tool, contra the the things that are being
Yeah,
shared on the other side of, like AI is taking my job, it's taking the most fun parts of my job. I think what people are going to have a chance to become are editors in chief, and you can do that only if you have a great understanding of tools that are out there and how different systems work.
yeah. And I like what you said about, AI taking away the most exciting part of the job. But like that's actually the opposite, right? It's like making them understand it's actually no, it's actually we take away like the AI take away the manual part of the job so you can focus on the exciting part of the job, right? I think making them see that really, really help build that bridge, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your side, like what are the AI implementations that you've seen stick and what are the AI implementations that you've seen fail?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I think I also mentioned briefly earlier, is having that maintenance system, having like a very robust and well thought out maintenance plan. Because as we know, like AI technology is like evolving, as in it always needs new data. Like with new data, LM outputs can be improved upon, right? So having that resources to actually able to maintain that and actually constantly improving upon that is what going to make the technology like better, and that's what going to make these systems actually stick, right, for a longer period of time. And I would say just from the ground up, like having a solid foundations when we design these kind of implementations and when we design these applications is also going to determine like how long it's going to stick, right? Because if you're trying to build a house, if you don't have a good foundation, it's going to fall, right? So like having that, as I mentioned earlier, having that robust testing scenario, having that robust evaluations and QA frameworks, and just in general having good designs from the ground up without just like, oh, let me just try these things out, right? Let me just like, oh, this new library, this new framework just came out. Let me just plug it in and see what happens, right? But like this is not a very robust way of doing it. Like having an objective way and a data-backed method of making sure that, hey, this system that we're building, is it actually solving a real problem? Like, is it actually helpful? Like, what's the returns from that if I'm actually implementing these systems, right? Can I see this sticking around in the company for another 2 years, 3 years, right? All of that, I think, really help determine if like AI system that we implement is gonna stick around or not, right? But yeah, I'm just curious also from kind of your side, how do you know if like a workforce is truly AI ready or they just think they're AI ready, but they're not actually?
Yeah, I think that, from my side, it's a lot about the mentality that we see. Like if you have a workforce that is one, having a robust approach on like what are the things that we want to see like come out of this, and when do we reassess and pivot, because I think that you've outlined it perfectly. Because at the end of the day, what's going to shift in the workforce is people are going to be, and the workforce as a whole is going to be kind of not judged but rated on the outcomes they create and not outputs they create. What was once usually like, oh wow, we were able to create like this many social media posts or this many, like pamphlets for our customers, or we were able to have this many calls. It's going to be more like, okay, we've done that. What is the intelligence we can collect from that? How can we optimize? And then how can we build on top of that so that we're going closer to the outcomes that we want to create, not just outputs. And
Yeah,
for me, that's number one sort of solution and number one green flag that I see. And the other piece of that is also just having that almost software mentality where you're constantly demoing and like, you're working on something and you're coming up with potential new solutions, because AI is moving so fast that if there is a problem that you're trying to solve, probably you're going to find great solutions or great ideas for solutions through AI and through different tools. So constantly ideating and trying to connect the dots so that the outcomes that you create are better and better week from week. So that's what I would look for.
yeah, nice. Yeah. No,
Awesome.
I think I pretty much like agree with what you said. I think also I would say like making sure that they actually they actually know what they're talking about rather than like they just like, oh, AI, like I want this, right? But like
Yeah.
I think making sure, I think there's a difference between like they're actually ready, like as opposed to just saying that for the sake of I just want AI, right? I think that's a big difference of that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I feel like you can see that because once people start being tuned into AI, like they understand one, the speed at which it's going, and then two, that not every solution, not every like flashy new solution is the solution that you need. It's
Hmm.
more about like understanding your business and understanding how to work together to create those outcomes that I mentioned. Okay, so if somebody came to us today and it was a company and they said, we want to implement AI within the next 6 months, what would be your recommendation and what would be your game plan to approach them?
Yeah, in 6 months, kind of a long time frame, but I mean,
Right?
actually, yeah, it depends on the companies, right? And honestly, like, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what you just said, essentially, and making sure that they're ready for AI. And obviously, like, it's not just them saying it, right? And I think the first step that any companies want to implement AI, first of all, they should have meetings among the executives first, making sure what their strategy, what's their vision, why they actually want AI, right? What problem they're seeing from a kind of management level, from a high level perspective for the company, like is there actually need for the AI? Like what's the exact problem that they're trying to solve, right? And a lot of the times we sometimes do this as well, which is just having an audit with the company. So maybe on the management level, which is like kind of the executives, and just kind of understand what their visions are like. I think another thing that a lot of people kind of miss is that it's not enough just among the executives, like kind of the decision makers, but also actually among the colleagues, like the everyday kind of colleagues who's on the operational side, who's doing the everyday workflow that they're doing, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of these AI solutions actually directly impact what they're doing on the front line. So it actually makes a lot of sense to do kind of an audit or even interviews with those people to kind of understand like what their what's their day-to-day workflow looks like, right? What's their operational challenge? Like what's one thing that they wish that a problem could go away and actually make them less headaches. I think that's really important because sometimes you can see, like, especially with larger company, there might be a disconnect between kind of management and kind of the operational side, right? And having that thorough discussion with both teams really, really maps out what are the key kind of headaches, what's the key pain points of like specific companies, and what are the key gaps that we're seeing that, if the companies needs AI or not for the specific problems. And I think having that or having that understanding of the company, then we need to kind of go one layer deeper, which is do their current infrastructure actually supports AI adoption, right? Because for all we know, their company tech stack might be outdated, right? And that's completely like impossible to take advantage of the AI, right? So having that understanding of the infrastructure and having that understanding of the data side as well, because as we mentioned previously, having the success of most AI projects almost depend on the quality of the data that they have. Like, and having a good understanding of, do they have good data? Do we need to make their data policies a bit better, etc.? All of that will influence, how successful the AI implementation would be. And therefore, if they say like, okay, next 6 months I want AI, okay, so in these 6 months, I'm making sure that all the points I just mentioned like are good to go. Because if these are good, then we're pretty confident that the AI implementation will be a successful one, essentially. But yeah, so I think that's kind of from the implementation side. But I'm curious, like on the people side, is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, from my side, and, and I think I love the fact that you're bringing like some of the tech stacks because I'm sure that you have to deal with some really, really outdated things and just doing that step zero where you take them from like here to here in order to be able to execute on the AI side also takes time. So commend
Yeah,
you for that. I think,
it's small things, right? And I mean, like
yeah.
some things, like even small things like fireflies for note takers or like
Yep.
notions, right? These things, like from our perspective, is so common, right? But
Right,
to
right.
some companies, they're like completely new. They're like, wow, that's so cool. Like, you mean you can record the entire meetings and just like summarize it to a transcript? That's really nice. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you would be surprised. There are some companies that still have interns taking notes from meetings. Like, that piece is also, I'm not sure that those interns want to be doing that as well. Like I feel like we've moved from that. We gotta go to the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from the people side, I feel like it's again the mindset shift. If people are ready for the change, if they're curious, if they're really not driven by fear, because action driven by fear is really it won't stick. It
Yeah.
will, people that are doing things out of fear and really trying to almost tolerate AI because it's the next big thing, it's not going to be fertile ground for change. It's going to be meth like what I see there's going to be a lot of yeses, but in the background, if people's hearts are not in it, it's really going to be like a hard shift. So for me, I would really take some time to work with the people to one, just allow them to play with some of the tools so that they can understand that something that used to be a headache for a task, like now it just requires their idea and it just requires like their curiosity and creativity. After that, then I would really rethink what they do and how they do it and how we can elevate their skill set and their sort of jurisdiction to another level and have AI, control the rest. So that would be kind of my approach.
Yeah, no, I really like what you said about the fear. Like it's not a good driving force going forward because I mean that creates a lot of friction as well. Just because like, oh, I'm forced to use AI without understanding it. Oh, okay, I'm just going to use AI. I hate AI, but then management said I have to use AI, so there you go. Like that's going to create a lot of negativity just in general among like kind of the everyday operational side. And you don't need that extra friction, right? Like the AI is supposed to help smoothen the entire process, but now using fear as like the driving force is just going to create a lot of unnecessary, yeah, negativity and frictions in general. And I don't think we need that. So exactly something like having that access to the education side and actually educate and inform like people in general. Hey, like it's a good thing. It's not like it's not like this bad thing that you kind of is always being portrayed in the media, right? So having that, I think, yeah, definitely would be very important for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just seeing some of the campaigns where it's pitting AI against people or AI against hiring and all of those things, what I actually think is going to happen is if we treat this right, there is such a immense opportunity to really elevate human, scope of work and really bring us back to the creativity and the craft of it. Because what I saw from Sam Altman, I think one of his quotes was like, there used to be a premium placed on how much information you could like hold and you could know and you can sort through, and that's what we thought of as intelligence. And now, uh, what we're going to start thinking about referring to as intelligence is going to be people that are able to connect the dots and really see patterns and really be creative in the process. And so that's what I that's my vision of what I want the AI workplace adaptation to happen. As we're rolling into the last piece of our podcast today and our episode, and I hope that we're going to have a couple of more different conversations.
Yeah.
The topic, what could be like a really positive use case that you saw from your work with clients where you just felt everything worked together and you got like positive feedback from the community so that we can leave our audience today with a really bright picture of what correct way of utilizing AI can do for you and for your workforce?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I can use the medium solution client as an example where actually like the team reached out to us first, right? And I just had a discussion with the client and he was like almost like a director kind of in the company. And it's amazing, like he already has like a very good understanding of AI, not just him necessarily, but his team as well. I mean, maybe like being a kind of tech-ish company helps, but I think the entire team just have a very good understanding of what AI can do. And I spoke with the customer support team as well, which is kind of the team that we're trying to help. And they seem to have a really good understanding of just, chat agents, a very good understanding of conversation with AI in general. And they're just, yeah, they really have a very good understanding of how exactly it can help them. And I think a lot of the times as well, like when we're kind of doing a lot of development, we actually have a weekly meeting with the client as well. And a lot of the time it's like the clients is just willing to learn, right? They're just like, oh, watch this really cool like video on YouTube. Like I try to educate myself on kind of the tech stack that you guys are using. And he wants to be involved in the process as well. Not just him, as the team as well. And like it's really funny because like part of the projects like involves building a knowledge base for kind of the AI applications. And one of the team members actually helped engineer the knowledge base, which was really, really impressive. It's like, because I was expecting like it's just us doing development work, but it's almost like a collaboration rather than just a pure like, hey, this is AI, this is what it can do, this is what's we, right? So, and seeing that really, really kind of smoothens the conversations a lot as well, because now the conversation is not about can AI work for me? The conversation becomes what's the best practice and what's the best infrastructure to build this kind of AI systems, right? And having that, being able to move to this discussion that early on, really, really kind of one, speed up the entire process of the implementation, and two, having them actively involved actually make the system more robust, right? Because they know their tech better than us. Like they know their company's better than us, right? So it's like a win-win situation. So this is exactly a situation where the team is really enthusiastic about this technology. They're willing to learn about this technology. They know they have a good understanding of the technology already, and they're willing to collaborate with some agencies like us, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that example just because I feel like it paints the picture of the utopia that I want to believe in with AI. And that's that it's counterintuitively it's going to become more about people because if AI is going to offload a lot of those things that are causing headaches for people, we're going to really all of a sudden have to become even more human and really think about, okay, at the end of the day, our end customer is the human. How do we make sure that our business is more human for them? How do we make sure that we're empathetic enough so that we understand? How do we make sure that we're serving them better because we know all of their pain points? Like it's for me, it's going to become more about knowing humans like in their depth and really working at each other to create holistic solutions.